probably all read, but never seen in a picture, Miss Madeline Slade, the English daughter of an admiral, who now prefers to be known as Malala Ben. She's one of Mr. Gandhi's most...
One man, one march, one nation. Gandhi's path to freedom.
During the 1930s and 40s, Gandhi led many movements to fight for India's independence, but his method of fighting was very different from the ones in the past. For one of the first real times in history, despite all of the oppression the Indian people faced for nearly 200 years, Gandhi refused to fight with blood for their independence, famously saying, "I object to violence because, when it appears to do good, the good is only temporary, the evil it does is permanent," which was said in the India magazine in 1925. Mahatma Gandhi's leadership in India's struggle for independence depicted a revolutionary approach to nonviolent methods. The Salt March exemplified a strategic revolt against British salt taxes, which united millions in peaceful protest. The non-cooperation movement furthered this revolt by urging Indians to withdraw from British institutions and businesses, aiming to disrupt colonial rule without the use of senseless violence. Meanwhile, the self-spinning movement advocated for reform by promoting economic self-sufficiency and national unity through the use of khadi. Together, these movements shape how Gandhi used the tool of nonviolence uniquely and innovatively to drive political and social change.
By the early 20th century, India had endured nearly 200 years of British colonial dominance. The British government and the East India Company drained India's economy, seized farmland, and controlled its industries. High taxes and exploitative policies deeply affected India's poor citizens. The Rowlatt Act of 1919, which allowed the British to imprison Indians without trial, further fueled resentment. One of the most symbolic injustices was the Salt Act of 1882. It made it illegal for Indians to make or sell their own salt, even though salt was essential for life. Every Indian, rich or poor, was forced to buy heavily taxed salt from the British government. According to the Gandhi Research Foundation, salt became a unifying symbol of oppression affecting every household. Into this world of injustice stepped Mahatma Gandhi. He introduced Satyagraha, meaning truth force, a philosophy of peaceful protest and civil disobedience. Gandhi believed nonviolence was not weakness, but strength. It could unite people across India and morally challenge the British Empire. Influenced by Leo Tolstoy, Heian philosophy, and Hindu scriptures, Gandhi formed nonviolence not just as a tactic, but as a way of life.
Revolution, the Salt March. Gandhi's first major act of civil resistance came with the non-cooperation movement in 1920. He urged Indians to boycott British schools, law courts, and imported goods, signaling a refusal to cooperate with an unjust regime. But he took it further in 1930 with the Salt March, one of the most iconic moments in the Indian independence movement. In response to the Salt Act, Gandhi announced he would walk 240 miles from his ashram in Sabarmati to the Arabian Sea. His goal was simple but powerful: to make salt from the sea, breaking the British monopoly in India. In a letter to Lord Irwin, Gandhi warned that civil disobedience would begin if the Salt Act was not repealed. His letter was gone ignored. Tens of thousands joined him on his journey. On April 6, 1930, Gandhi bent down and picked up a handful of salt, declaring India's right to freedom. It was a peaceful but revolutionary act. In the days that followed, Indians across the country followed his example. They made their own salt and protested at salt works like Darsana, where they were met with brutal police violence. American journalist Webb Miller described how unarmed Indians were struck down with steel-tipped clubs, but not one raised a hand in return, exemplifying the nonviolent resistance that Gandhi used to lead his Salt March. The world watched in horror, and support for India grew, while resentment against Britain built up. This march transformed the Indian independence movement into a global story, showing that nonviolent resistance could be powerful, strategic, and revolutionary.
While Gandhi led dramatic protests, he also launched a quieter revolution, the Gandhi movement. Under British rule, India's hand-woven cloth industry had collapsed. The British sold cheap industrial cloth from England, while millions of Indians went unemployed. According to the Khadi and Village Industries Commission, Indian mills declined by over 70% under colonialism. Gandhi believed true independence had to include economic freedom. He encouraged every Indian to spin their own cloth, known as khadi, and boycott British goods. He called the spinning wheel the center of the solar system of Indian villages. The Khadi movement taught Indians to take pride in self-reliance, fragility, and national unity. This reform had a deeper message. Spinning khadi wasn't just economic, it was moral. It gave people a daily way to resist colonialism. It also empowered women and poor villagers to participate in the independence movement. Khadi became the symbol of reform. It didn't destroy, it rebuilt. It gave Indians something new to believe in, themselves. As scholar Thomas Weber explains, khadi was a tool of empowerment, self-purification, and resistance.
Reaction: the British response. The British government reacted with harsh and brutal crackdowns. More than 60,000 Indians were arrested during the Salt March and its aftermath, including Gandhi himself. The British passed the Civil Disobedience Repression Ordinance, allowing harsher sentencing and more crackdowns. At the Darasana Salt Works, peaceful protesters were beaten so brutally that even international media turned against the British Raj. Webb Miller's dispatch to American and British newspapers caused outrage to emerge abroad. Gandhi's arrest only made him more of a symbol and a martyr, and the violent British response made their rule look weak and cruel. Instead of ending the movement, repression backfired. Gandhi's nonviolent methods exposed the moral failures and unjustness of colonialism. He and his followers became symbols of dignity and justice in the face of brutality. British politician Winston Churchill, frustrated, called Gandhi a seditious Middle Temple lawyer now posing as a fakir. Yet this lowly fakir was shaking a global empire.
In short term, Gandhi's movements did not immediately result in independence, but they accomplished something almost more important: unity. People from all religions, castes, and regions stood together under Gandhi's vision. India began to believe in itself again. The British Raj looked weaker with every passing protest. The 1931 Gandhi-Irwin Pact allowed for temporary peace and released political prisoners, showing Gandhi's power to negotiate. By the mid-1930s, Indian political identity was changed forever. The Indian National Congress, once elite, now spoke for the masses. Gandhi gave India a voice, and that voice refused to be silent.
Long-term impact. By 1947, after decades of struggle, India finally gained their independence. But Gandhi's ideas went even further than the Indian subcontinent. His philosophy of nonviolence inspired global leaders. Martin Luther King Jr. adopted Gandhi's principles in the American Civil Rights Movement, saying, "Christ gave us goals and Gandhi gave us the tactics." Nelson Mandela credited Gandhi's influence in South Africa, his fight against apartheid. In Poland, Lech Wałęsa's solidarity movement echoed Gandhi's peaceful resistance methods. Even today, protesters from Hong Kong to climate activists draw from Gandhi's legacy of non-cooperation and nonviolent resistance. His methods also influenced the Arab Spring and the Extinction Rebellion. Gandhi's revolution wasn't just Indian, it was and continues to be universal.
Gandhi's story is one of reaction, revolution, and reform, all through peace. He didn't take up weapons or rage. He took up salt, cloth, and truth. He showed the world that courage could be quiet and power didn't have to be violent. From the Salt March to the spinning wheel, his ideas reshaped India and inspired movements across continents. Gandhi's revolution taught us that change isn't always loud, but it echoes through generations. His life proved that justice, when paired with nonviolence, could shake empires and inspire nations. And that's a legacy worth remembering.